Look, this story today that's in the press, I will say that when I first saw the numbers, I was stunned. And then I think back to everything we have seen just in Montreal, because this is a Canadian study. And then after that, it begins to make sense, right? Brazen daylight robberies. We've heard of businesses that have been targeted by organized crime, but you thought, well, perhaps that's just specific to Montreal. Turns out it's not. There is a new study that shows that organized crime in Canada is now considered to be the biggest threat for retailers in this country. Wow. So let's try to find out some details here, plus what can be done, because we're realizing this is a national issue. Rui Rodrigues is Retail Council of Canada Executive Advisor. He is on the line. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Look, that's a pretty staggering number to read. I mean, we know organized crime is around. We know it's existed, but I don't remember ever seeing numbers this high. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And our study shows the last time we did a report of this nature would have been back in 2017, reported in 2018, and the numbers of close to double when we talk about losses. But organized retail crime, and I'll specify retail crime because there are differences to general organized crime, has definitely increased, and we've seen a dramatic increase, and our members report a dramatic increase post-COVID. And it's become a much more complex issue than what we knew it to be 10, 15 years ago.
Well, I would ask a simple question like, why do you think this is happening? But I want to just point out, and thank you for saying that we're talking about a retail crime here, not organized crime in general, but this is ahead of shoplifting. It's ahead of fraud, which I would have guessed would have been number one on that list, but there's even more of this organized crime affecting these businesses. Why do you think this is happening? Do we know?
And it's just not just that there's more of it. Organized retail crime, it's the elements that it brings for retailers. So fraud, dollar amounts can be larger in some cases. However, organized retail crime, when you think about brick and mortar locations, online platforms, people working in retail, shoplifting will always be around. It's been around a long time. And the idea of somebody stealing an item for their own consumption has been around forever, but the idea of organized retail crime and the repeat, prolific, and volume of crime is the concern. And then with it, it's the association of more aggravated incidents. Repeat offenders are repeat because there aren't consequences that are severe enough for their actions, so they continue to have the confidence to do this. There's more violence, more utilization of weapons during the commissions of these crimes that we have not seen. Years ago, it might be once in a blue moon you would hear about a weapon in a retail incident, where it's a daily occurrence. So the increase of organized retail crime and the dollar losses is substantial. It's also the fact that it's become a much more complex issue that brings in the assaults, the violence, the number of ways that organized retail crime operates now compared to what we used to deal with.
Is some of this, do you think, maybe the statistics bear this out, because of, say, online recruitment, for example, where it's just easier to get it, for the most part, we're talking, at least in this city, from stories that I have heard that we've reported, younger and younger criminals. I don't remember a generation ago talking about 14 and 15-year-olds being involved in organized crime.
No, you're absolutely right. There's an element there. Social media, unfortunately, does allow people to connect in a much bigger way than ever before and become friendly in certain nature and organize themselves. And we've seen those examples of large incident crimes, large groups of individuals who have met through social media to do that. But it's in general, the other part you spoke of was the young offenders. A lot of the incidents we've seen over the last few months, even just recently, with daylight crimes where you've got groups of 3-4 males all dressed up, masked up, going into a location, carrying weapons, smashing things, those type of daylight robberies, you would hear about in banks way back in the day. It's not main stage for several years, but now we see more and more of those issues. And it's not anecdotal because we know when those arrests are made, in a lot of these occurrences, these offenders are under 17. We've seen incidents of 14, 15-year-olds.
I wonder, too, I remembered a couple of situations in Montreal where shopkeepers later came forward and said, they'd been basically threatened, right, where you're basically being extorted to pay protection money, et cetera. The kind of stuff we'd see in the movies is now happening in real life. How much of that was involved in this? Do we know?
Yeah, that I couldn't honestly comment on it, to be frank. We don't hear of see that as much. I'm sure it's still prevalent in certain areas. I'd say the complexity of organized retail crime is where we used to see it as more truly organized professional groups. This is what they did for a living. They didn't want to get caught. That's what they do for a living. Being detained or derailed just stops their enterprise, whereas now it's more of the disorganized, organized retail criminals. You may have someone who has an illicit marketplace, whether online or a brick-and-mortar location, who's going out and preying upon either young people or marginalized individuals that are dealing with mental health, drug addiction, alcoholism, asking them to go steal and giving them a couple of bucks for something, and then they're reselling those items. So even that element has increased a lot. And again, we see this through some of the projects that we've done with police in some major centers, where you can see this with the anti-fence units, where you can track the individuals putting in the orders with these folks. They're going to steal. They're being surveilled, and it is part of a bigger organization. That's where I would say there's a connection to other organized crime, not just retail crime. We've seen the examples where when there are these projects and the arrests are made in these bigger scale projects, there's connections to guns, to drugs, to human trafficking. So the proceeds of these crimes are, in many instances, going to fund other more organized or more illicit criminal enterprises.
We've discussed what the issues are, what's happening. With respect to solutions, you have this many, retailers all getting together and basically saying the same thing. Are you asking the government? I mean, I know this idea of bail has come up before. It's actually mentioned by the Prime Minister today. Is that what's going to make a change, or what is needed according to the people you've spoken to?
Yeah, and it's a multi-pronged approach. One of the things I can say proudly is retailers that we represent and others who aren't necessarily members of RCC have come together collectively and want to work together to make a difference. Law enforcement has come to the table, and we have really great collaborations with several police services across the country, including areas of Quebec, with Laval, Montreal, even Terrebonne. SQ has recently started to join some of our causes. But where that we need massive change and very dramatic, bail reform, as you mentioned, is one. We can't have a revolving door of criminals. And if the perception remains that retail crime or these crimes are low-level crime and these people are released, they are back reoffending the same day or next day, and they continue to grow in brazenness and confidence that there's no consequences to their actions. The second part is our criminal code legislative amendments need to be made that are tougher on crime. Because right now, the criminal perceives it as to be, for them, there's no consequences to their actions when they're being released. We've dealt with people that have greater than 80 incidents with police, have never seen the inside of a courthouse or have never seen jail time. That, to me, a repeat prolific offender shouldn't be released. There should be enough that prosecution can demonstrate this person clearly is not a good citizen, but yet we continue to release them. There needs to be some massive reform.
Is the government, the government's hearing this, are you satisfied that something is going to get done based on, these kinds of statistics?
I would say momentum over 2024 has gained, and we've seen some great examples in Manitoba where we've worked very closely. We have an executive task force for retail crime there. We've worked closely with the minister, the premier, even the Mayor Gillingham of Winnipeg. And we have a lot of people at the table who want to make a change and are working together. So when you have the voice of police, government, justice, all at the same table, at that table we even have the executive director of prosecutions for Manitoba. It allows us to collaborate, build that network, and start to work on the worst offenders. Vancouver and BC, we've also seen some traction growing. We're starting to see some in Ontario and Quebec. So it's just a continuation that needs to happen. And we need government at the table. We need ministers, whether it's Solicitor General, Attorney Generals, Minister of Justice, Justice federally, to work with us. The retailers are willing to work with those stakeholders. We need them to hear us, come to the table, and work on solutions. And we believe we can turn this around if we work together.
Mr. Rodrigues, I do appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Cheers.